Nobody showed up to my graduation. Not one familiar face in the crowd. My name echoed through the speakers. Diana Marie Collins, Master of Data Analytics. For a heartbeat, I looked up, searching the stands for someone waving, clapping, caring. But the row marked reserved for families stared back at me, empty, metallic, and shining beneath the sun, like a mirror reflecting everything I already knew. Sunlight bounced off those cold seats, burning into my eyes. I smiled for the photo anyway, pretending it didn't sting, pretending I wasn't scanning the crowd like a child lost in a supermarket. All around me, the world was joy in motion. Parents cheering, cameras flashing, kids crying into bouquets. My classmates were swallowed up by hugs and laughter. I stood off to the side, clutching my diploma, like proof that I still mattered to someone, even if that someone had to be me. When my friend Ruby found me afterward, she squealed, "Though, you did it, Diana. Where's your family? Running late?" I smiled and lied. "Yeah, probably parking." The words slipped out so easily, like a language I'd been fluent in all my life. The language of pretending things were okay. I waited in the courtyard long after everyone left, just standing there, scrolling my phone, refreshing the same blank notifications. The air smelled like confetti and sunscreen. Every sound around me, laughter, car horns, the rustle of gift bags, reminded me how silence feels when it's personal. By the time I reached the parking lot, the sun had melted into gold. Balloons bobbed above car roofs. Families piled into minivans. Cameras still flashing. I sat in my old Civic, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching the crowd thin out. For a second, I let myself imagine them. My mom waving, my dad carrying flowers, my little sister Avery running ahead in her glitter sneakers. I could almost see them. Almost. Then an engine roared nearby, and the image vanished like smoke. I shouldn't have been surprised. They'd skipped my college graduation, too. Back then, Mom said Avery had finals. Dad didn't even bother calling. There was always a reason. Always something or someone more important. I spent most of my life trying to earn their love like it came with a grade or a paycheck. When I was 16, I wore a brown Starbucks apron before sunrise, serving caramel macchiatos to half-awake commuters. Every week, Mom texted things like, "Thanks, honey. Avery needs piano lessons," or "She has a school trip. Can you send a little extra?" I sent the money every time, even when I barely had enough for gas. And when she said, "You're a pride, Diana," I believed her. I thought love sounded like appreciation. Now I know it sounded like obligation. When I got into grad school, I told myself this was the turning point, that if I worked hard enough, earned enough, became enough, she'd finally see me, not as the safety net, not as the responsible one, but as her equal. I thought success would buy me love, the way I'd always bought peace. 3 days after the ceremony, my cap and gown still hung by the door. My phone buzzed. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd text, "I'm proud of you." Instead, I saw it. Dig into $100 for your sister's sweet 16. No, how did it go? No congratulations, just numbers. A deadline disguised as family. I stared at the screen. The room suddenly too quiet. The glow of the message felt colder than any silence that came before it. So, I opened my banking app, typed in $1, and added a note, "Congrats." Then I hit send. After that, I walked to the front door, pulled out the spare key my mother always insisted on keeping for emergencies, and dropped it into the trash. That night, I called a locksmith. The man replaced the old lock with a new one, solid, heavy, unbreakable. When he left, I stood there, fingers on the cool metal, listening to the click echo through my apartment. For the first time, the silence that followed didn't hurt. It didn't feel empty. It felt like mine. But silence doesn't last forever, and in my life, peace never came without a knock. It happened 2 nights later. A sharp knock echoed through the apartment just past midnight, 3 slow, heavy thuds that didn't sound like a neighbor or a delivery. For a moment, I froze, halfway between fear and exhaustion. I almost didn't answer. Then I heard her voice. "Diana, it's me. Open up." My stomach dropped. "Mom." I stared through the peephole. There she was. Same messy bun, same furrowed brows, same tired face that had once made me feel safe and guilty all at once. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood Avery, my 16-year-old sister, the golden child. She was scrolling her phone, bored, gum snapping in her mouth. I noticed the sparkly pink nails and the designer jacket. Probably new. Probably mine. If I checked my credit card. I opened the door just enough to meet their eyes. "Hey," I said flatly. "Everything okay?" Mom gave me that sigh, the one that sounded like I raised you better than this. "Can we come in? We need to talk." I stepped aside, not because I wanted to, but because I still didn't know how to say no to her. The smell of her perfume filled the hallway, the same one she wore when she used to leave for errands that lasted days. She sat on the couch like it was still hers. Avery dropped into my reading chair, barely looking up from her phone. "Nice place," Mom muttered, glancing around. "I didn't know you could afford this kind of rent." There it was, the first jab. I just smiled. Graduating helps. She didn't laugh. She never did when I said something she couldn't control. After a long pause, she clasped her hands and said, "We're in trouble, Diana." My chest tightened. Same words, different. She explained that Dad's small business had gone under. The house was about to be repossessed, and Avery's Sweet 16 venue demanded payment by Friday. I didn't say a word, just listened. Every sentence sounded like a repeat of my life's chorus. "We need help. You're the responsible one." Finally, Mom looked me in the eyes. "And now, you sent that dollar. That was cruel, Diana. We raised you better." I almost laughed. Raised me? She meant used me. Still, my voice came out calm. "Mom, that wasn't cruel. It was symbolic." Her jaw tightened. Symbolic of what? I looked right at her. Of how much support I have left to give. The silence that followed was so thick it buzzed in my ears. Avery finally looked up. "So, does that mean no party?" she asked, like she couldn't care less what this moment actually meant. Mom stood up, anger simmering under her skin. "You've changed, Diana." And for the first time in my life, I said, "Good." Then I opened the door and waited. They didn't move right away, but eventually they left, heels clicking down the hall, leaving the scent of guilt and cheap perfume behind. When the door shut, I leaned against it and let out a shaky breath. For the first time, I realized something terrifying and freeing at once. They didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as a wallet that finally ran out. A week passed after that night. No calls. No texts. Not even one of Mom's guilt-laced voice messages. Just silence. It was strange, peaceful at first, then eerie. Like the quiet before a storm. I threw myself into work, started freelancing online, even treated myself to coffee without guilt. Every morning I'd pass the mirror, and barely recognize the woman staring back. Someone who looked lighter. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, the storm found me. A thick white envelope sat wedged in my mailbox. Stamped and official. Collins Family Trust. Confidential. For a moment I just stared at it, heart hammering in my chest. The word trust looked so foreign next to my last name. It almost made me laugh. We'd never had trust, not the emotional kind, and definitely not the financial one. Inside was a letter from a law firm I didn't recognize. It read, We're reaching out regarding the late Mr. Henry Collins' estate and trust distribution. Please contact our office immediately to discuss your portion of the inheritance. My fingers went cold. Henry Collins, my grandfather, the man my mom rarely mentioned and always called a cruel old miser. The same man I hadn't seen since I was 9 years old. The letter listed an appointment for the following Monday at 10 a.m. It didn't say how much or why me, just that I was included. That night, I barely slept. Memories of Grandpa flickered in fragments. His quiet voice, his old farmhouse, how he once told me, "You don't have to buy love, Diana. You earn peace by knowing who's worth it." I didn't understand it back then. Now I felt those words sitting heavy in my chest. By Monday morning, I was standing in a sleek downtown office, clutching the letter like a lifeline. A young assistant led me into a conference room where a gray-haired lawyer sat waiting. He smiled politely. "Miss Collins, thank you for coming." I nodded, still confused. I wasn't expecting this. My family never said anything about a trust. He adjusted his glasses, opened a folder, and said, "Your grandfather set it up years ago. You were the primary beneficiary. The other family members were notified after his passing," but he paused, hesitating. "But," I asked. He looked at me carefully. Your mother and sister claimed you had no right to it. They presented documents suggesting you had relinquished your share. My blood ran cold. What? That's impossible. He nodded grimly. He laughed so too. That's why we contacted you directly. The signature didn't match yours, and there were unusual withdrawals made in your name. I could feel the room spinning. I whispered, "How much money are we talking about?" He flipped another page. That was roughly $3,400,000. Silence. Then I laughed. Short, bitter, hollow. All this time, while I was scraping rent, sending them money, chasing approval, they'd been stealing what was already mine. I leaned back in the chair, heartbeat echoing in my ears. What happens now? The lawyer's expression softened. Now, Miss Collins, we prove it, and you get back what's yours. I drove straight to my mother's house that evening, not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed answers before the anger inside me turned into something worse. The same white two-story house I grew up in looked smaller now, almost fragile under the porch light. For years I used to stand there praying someone would come out and tell me they were proud of me. This time I didn't want their words. I wanted the truth. Mom opened the door, halfway, surprised. "Diana, what are you doing here?" I didn't bother with small talk. "Why did you forge my name?" Her face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. That trust, Mom. Grandpa Henry's trust. The lawyer showed me everything. The fake signature. The withdrawals. The transfers in my name. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then, finally, she whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out." That sentence hit harder than any confession. No apology, no denial. Just cold acceptance, like it was a secret she'd planned to carry to her grave. I stepped inside. The house smelled like candles and guilt. Every sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to listen. "Was it both of you?" I asked quietly. Every finally looked up. Mom said, "You didn't need the money. You've got your degree, your job." I cut her off. "You mean the job that barely pays rent? The one I kept so you could have piano lessons, new shoes, and your sweet 16 that apparently cost my inheritance." Avery rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." Something inside me snapped. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with silence. The kind of silence that hurts more than any scream. I turned back to Mom. "Taup, he left it for me, didn't he? You knew, all these years." She nodded slowly. "You were always his favorite," he said. "You had his fire. He didn't think you needed the money, said you'd earn your own. But I thought you'd waste it. We all needed it more." Her voice trembled, but I couldn't find sympathy. "You stole it, Mom. You lied to me for years, and you made me feel like I wasn't enough while you spent what was mine." Tears gathered in her eyes. "I just wanted to keep us together." "So, you didn't keep us together," I said softly. "You built a family on theft and silence." Avery's voice cut through the room. "Doe. So what now? You're gonna sue your own mother, Evo." I looked at her, this girl who had everything I'd ever worked for and didn't even know what it cost. "No," I said. "I'm just taking back what's mine." When I turned to leave, Mom grabbed my wrist. "Diana, please. Don't destroy the family over this." I looked at her hand on mine, the same hand that once held mine at school drop-offs, the same hand that signed away my future, and I gently pulled it free. "She would destroyed it the day you chose money over me." Then I walked out. The night air hit me like a second breath. For the first time, I didn't feel small or broken. I felt awake. I didn't know exactly what would come next. But I knew one thing. They'd built their happiness on my silence. Now I was done being quiet. 2 months passed. Long enough for the paperwork to clear. Long enough for the truth to find its way through every sealed envelope, every frozen account, every lawyer's call. I didn't need to raise my voice or slam doors. All I did was sign my name, the real one this time, on a single legal form that reclaimed everything they'd taken. The lawyer called it justice. To me, it felt like balance. Mom tried to call 12 times in one day. Each voicemail was a different version of her, apologetic, angry, desperate. The last one just said, "You've destroyed us, Diana." But she was wrong. They destroyed me first. I just stopped rebuilding their version of me. When the inheritance officially transferred, I didn't buy a mansion or a car or any of the things people dream about when they say revenge. I paid off my student loans, donated part of it to a scholarship fund in Grandpa Henry's name, and I bought a small place near the coast. Quiet and simple. The kind of peace you can't fake. One morning, I found a letter slipped under my new front door. No name, no address, just 2 words in shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. I knew it was her. I didn't tear it up. I didn't forgive her, either. I just placed it in a drawer and left it there. A reminder that sometimes closure isn't loud. It's choosing not to answer the knock. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the ocean turn gold under the sunset. I thought about the girl at her graduation, smiling for a photo in an empty row of seats. I wanted to tell her that someday she'd learn the difference between being needed and being valued, and that peace doesn't come from being seen. It comes from walking away when no one bothers to look. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you for listening.